With speeds of winds nearing 200 miles per hour, Hurricane Irma, one of the strongest Atlantic hurricanes in recorded history, is tearing through the Caribbean with little sign of slowing down. The U.S. is on a collision course with the Category 5 storm, packing sustained winds of a jaw-dropping 185 miles per hour. Virtually every computer model has Hurricane Irma making landfall in the United States as soon as Saturday. Brandon Rue has been keeping an eye on the storm for us so far. Thoughts are with Florida right now.
Absolutely, and everybody else in the path of the storm, the Caribbean islands and on under a state of emergency as residents make a run on gas stations, grocery stores ahead of a mandatory evacuation order. Meanwhile, millions more are bracing for the potentially catastrophic Category 5 storm. Overnight, Hurricane Irma blasting through the Caribbean, making its first landfall over Barbuda.
The wind, the rain, everything is going into that direction.
And this morning, all of Florida is under a state of emergency as the storm, a Category 5 behemoth, races toward the U.S. Incredible NASA images showing the monster storm. Officials warning this one is serious.
It's not getting smaller, it's getting bigger.
Get prepared. Prepare now.
Stock up on emergency supplies.
It's now the most powerful Atlantic storm on record, and the frantic scramble to get out of harm's way is already on.
The quicker we get out of here, the better.
Miami-Dade County could start its own evacuations as early as today.
How worried are you about the storm?
Extremely worried. I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, probably 13.
Water already hard to find.
There's no water, so we have to go somewhere else for the water.
There's a rush on gas. Plywood brought in by the truckload.
How many loads for you today?
Too many. We can't take no chances. We got to just, get prepared.
Hurricane hunters help map Irma's every move. Like previous monster storms, Hugo, Floyd, and Ivan, Irma is what's known as a classic Cape Verde hurricane, formed off the west coast of Africa. They're typically among the most intense. The National Hurricane Center calls Irma potentially catastrophic.
The potential is too great for us not to take action right now.
And of course, we are keeping our eyes on this. We'll be checking back in with meteorologist Brandon Rue in just a minute. Of course, for up-to-the-minute details about Irma throughout the day, you can visit our website. Just go to clickondetroit.com for that. Meanwhile, a family from Metro Detroit is stranded in the Virgin Islands, waiting out the storm there. As a Pontiac native, Pastor John Smith Jr. is used to rainy weather, but a hurricane, quite the different story entirely.
That's what my anxiety and my issues are with the unknown. I just don't know what 150 and 175 mile per hour winds are like, and I guess sometime soon we're going to find out.
Well, they certainly will. Pastor Smith says that he would have moved his family away from the region already, but plane tickets soared to nearly $1,000 when that hurricane intensified. Meanwhile, today, the House of Representatives will debate on legislation to provide emergency funding for Hurricane Harvey victims. The House is expected to vote early this afternoon on that aid package. FEMA saying that it will be out of relief funds by Friday. And just seeing the devastation from Harvey, and even having lived through a hurricane myself, Brandon, a Category 4, we know that every penny is needed to help some of those victims.
Big time, just recovering from Harvey, and now there's Irma, and this one will be different in its destructive path. Won't be as much about rain as it will be about the wind and storm surge in some of these Caribbean countries and down in the Atlantic Ocean that just are not designed to handle it. We're going to have much more on the path or projected paths of this storm in about 10 minutes, so stand by. Meantime, we are in the 60s for the most part. We have 59 in Sandusky, but 63 Metro, 62 in Howell right now. These winds are still not real strong, but out of the west-northwest, 5 to 12 miles an hour, and driving in cooler air for us here in Metro Detroit. Isolated rain and thunder showers sometime after 3 o'clock through the mid-late afternoon, early evening hours, scattered about the area. area. So not a deluge, nonstop. Don't cancel your plans, but do expect some of those showers that could at least temporarily impact your afternoon, evening outdoor plans. 63 now, on our way only to 67. And again, after 3 p.m., watch out for some of these showers that could produce some thunder, maybe even some small hail, as cool as it is. And again, we have nothing to complain about considering what's happening down south. If you're heading out, remember, you can get your forecast, live radar, all of the updates right there in the palm of your hand. Our free local forecasters app. To download, just search WDIV in your app store. Everett.
Thank you, Brandon. Right now, we want to get to breaking news that we're following from Melvindale High School. The school has actually been evacuated because of a gas leak there. Right now, you can see crews there on the scene trying to fix that leak. And we've also learned that classes will not continue until at least tomorrow. In other news, Michigan State Police conducting 5 early morning raids across Metro Detroit, and sources tell Local 4 that they're all connected. Let's go live now to Local 4's Jason Colthorpe, who is following this developing story for us. Do we know what they were after?
Well, these 4 raids is what we know about, or 5 raids, I should say. 4 in Detroit, 1 in Taylor. Now, Michigan State Police heavy investigative task force unit running these raids, but I'm told the Detroit Homicide Task Force, it's their case right now. And if one of the raids happened on Allendale, just off the I-96 service drive this morning, take a look at some video we have. You can see officers from MSP in heavy armored gear conducting these raids. We're told 5 people have been taken into custody, and it's related to 3 homicides and 1 carjacking, all recent, not at the same time, but all connected. We're not expecting anything else to happen on this front today, but we are going to be following to see what happens. Now, at that Allendale home there earlier, once police cleared the scene a little bit after 11 o'clock, we watched 4 young men, because there were several people in the house and not all of them were taken into custody, but they were in cuffs for quite a while. As soon as police left, they were grabbing clothes. One grabbed a TV, jumped in a car, and got out of there very quickly. So we will be watching to see where these arrests go from here. Everett?
All righty, we'll definitely be following this story. Jason, thank you. Would-be thieves who took aim at a pair of ATMs on Detroit's west side this morning came away empty-handed. Police believe a truck was used to ram the ATMs at this Bank of America branch, the one right there on Grand River and Longacre, just east of the Southfield Freeway. 1 machine was damaged, as you can see here. No money was taken, and no suspects are in custody at this time. And Livonia police are telling Local 4 now that they've made an arrest after an armed robbery at a 7-Eleven store at 7 Mile and Inkster Road this morning. Investigators there believing that the man in custody is the same man who robbed a 7-Eleven store early Tuesday at Inkster and Schoolcraft Roads in Redford Township. That suspect might appear in court a little bit later today. Some very tragic news to tell you about this afternoon, as 2 people were shot and killed last night in southwest Detroit. And what's even more sad is that one of the victims was a woman who was 4 months pregnant. She's 29-year-old Sophia Wilson. She was pregnant with her 3rd child. She and a man were killed when shots were fired into a home on Deacon Street. Right now, police have 2 men in custody, including Wilson's boyfriend, and so far no charges have been filed. The future of the Royal Inn Motel remains up in the air this afternoon. That motel, as you probably remember, was forced to close by Royal Oak Township officials after dozens of health code violations. The owner filed a temporary restraining order, which allowed residents to stay. However, Royal Oak Township officials responded with a counter motion of their own. Both sides are appearing in court today. Some big news now from Capitol Hill. As the Justice Department announced, it will wind down the DACA program, or Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals as it's known. DACA was meant to shield undocumented immigrants who came to the U.S. as children from future deportation. The president set up a termination schedule for the policy, allowing Congress 6 months to propose alternative legislation. In the meantime, new DACA applications will no longer be considered. All right, so to come here on Local 4 News at noon, it's a very serious problem that hits home in every community. We're talking about opioid addiction. And it's not just the addict who needs help. Up next, we're going to introduce you to a local mom who gave up her successful career to focus her attention on families that are struggling with this epidemic. Welcome back, everyone. Every day, more than 90 Americans die from an overdose of opioids. That could be heroin, prescription pain pills, fentanyl. And that is why us here at Local 4 dedicating today to this very serious crisis. And joining me now in studio to talk about opioid nation and American epidemic is Katie Donovan. She's the Executive Vice President of FAN, which stands for Families Against Narcotics. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon and for sharing your story with us. Because as we were talking during the break, your daughter is a former heroin addict, your daughter Brittany.
That's correct.
Just talk about, as a mother, going through that, how difficult that is to see your daughter going through that.
It is. When your child is struggling with something that you're not familiar with, that you're not aware of, your child is disappearing before your eyes, and you feel helpless, you feel hopeless, and everything that I thought that I was doing right as a parent was almost everything wrong, and I didn't realize that. By trying to save her out of situations, I thought I was protecting her. I wasn't letting the natural consequences occur. And as a family, to see your child struggle and knowing that she is so desperate to not want to be this way, that she's sick with a disease. When your child is sick, as a parent, you do everything you possibly can to save them, no matter what. And we had experienced so much trauma. This disease lasted, well, we'll say it continues to last. She's actually, I call it in remission right now.
Right, because you were mentioning to me, she's been clean for a period of time. Kind of go into that.
My daughter Brittany had been clean for just over 2 years, and she recently had a relapse. And she went public with it. She knew she needed to, not only to help others, which is why we share our story, but more importantly to help herself, about being honest that this is the reality of the disease. It is a fight that she has to work on her recovery every single day. And as a parent, I have to work on myself as well.
So what advice would you have for the parents that are out there watching, thinking that, you know, this might be something too difficult for them to fight? Maybe they don't know what to do. What advice would you have for them to help them help their child?
It's very, very overwhelming as a parent. And what I would suggest, one, don't be silent. Please come out and talk about it. Go to support groups, reach out. This is too big of something that you can handle on your own as a parent. You need the support of a community. You need the support of peers and others that have been through this, the support of professionals to guide you on that direction.
Well, we thank you so much for sharing your story, and we do wish Brittany all the best in battling this addiction. We do want to let you know that we have special coverage of opioids in every newscast today, as well as resources online at our website, clickondetroit.com. Then starting today at 4 o'clock, we're going to have addict experts ready to answer any of your questions in a special phone bank and web chat that you can tune in for. It's all leading up to a primetime special live at 10 o'clock with Devin Skillian and Kimberly Gill, the Local 4 defenders, Dr. Frank McGeorge, as well as Steve Garagiola, all taking an in-depth look at this very real problem. You'll also hear from doctors, from addicts themselves, even former drug dealers on how we together as a community can help stop this crisis. So again, thank you so much for stopping by and for sharing your story. Next here on Local 4 News at noon, the 2017 pickup truck crash test safety results are in. And there's some good news and some bad news, and we'll have the results for you coming up. Brandon?
We are in a stretch here of some cooler and wetter weather. You don't feel that looking outside right now, but we're tracking some showers, rain and thunder over in parts of Indiana, southwestern lower, and we're tracking more rain and cooler temperatures next.
Well, there's good news and bad news with the IIHS crash test safety results for 2017 small pickup trucks. Let's start with the good news. 4 out of the 8 trucks that were tested earned a good rating. But the bad news, 0 trucks earned an IIHS safety award due to not having automatic emergency brakes and or having insufficient headlights. Well, now let's turn things over to meteorologist Brandon Rue. We needed a light jacket at the bus stop this morning. How are we doing this afternoon?
We briefly had 38 degrees at the airport out in Washtenaw County near Ann Arbor, but a lot of 40s, and we're going to be right back at it again tomorrow morning, Friday morning, Saturday morning, 40s all over the place. And you'll see some more of this later this afternoon and early evening. Double rainbow from our Local 4 storm pins over in the Dearborn Heights area. This is a free app storm pins under WDIV. It's a good one. Temperatures out there right now, we have temperatures in the low 60s everywhere and only gaining a few more degrees heading into the afternoon. 67 for a high temperature with some spotty rain and thunder showers between 3 and 9 p.m. Not during that entire period, but that's that window where these smaller showers will be coming and going. Could have a little lightning, could have a little bit of pellet-sized hail, telling us that the cloud temperatures are cool, more so than normal. So we get that small hail, not necessarily from severity, but the coolness of those clouds. 50 degrees overnight and more 40s in the suburbs. At 50 is at Metro or in Detroit, and the suburbs are all feeling certainly cooler than that. Notice we have the rain to the north and to the west, even to the south and east, just all around us, but eventually it does start to fill in here. Very hit or miss through this afternoon, but a very slow-moving system brings a repeat pattern to us again tomorrow. This is Irma. This is a monster storm. The size of this, from, I guess, the diameter is about the size of Indiana, Illinois, and Ohio put together. 600 miles across on this one. And look at that giant eye that is moving just north of the British Virgin Islands. And the trends and tracks of this just over the last few hours have been heading a little bit more I guess away from Miami, but as we head through today, it's just north of Puerto Rico, then the Dominican tomorrow, into Cuba by Friday, still a Category 5 possibly, and then up toward Miami as a Category 4. And this is a different look here from what we call a spaghetti plot, where there's like 7 different models all involved. And notice how more and more of the activity is going between Miami and the Bahamas. So something worth watching over the next day or so on the track of that. Meantime, tomorrow, again, cool to start. More showers, heavier and more numerous in the afternoon tomorrow. Friday, though, a couple of showers in the thumb. Other than that, we're dry and dry all weekend. Evrod?
Sounds good, Brandon. Thank you. Well, most kids have been in school for at least a few hours now, but it turns out that could be costing you. Next at noon, new research that says early morning classes could be costing taxpayers $9 billion. Finally, here at noon, most schools start around 8 a.m., but apparently that could be bad news for your wallet. There's a new study that found that starting school at 8:30 a.m. could save the country about $9 billion a year in taxes, and a later school start time would give students more money or more sleep that they need and could reduce the risk of substance abuse. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.